for me, the most exciting part is all the things that happen around the events.
Louise reporting for duty.
Roll sound.
5 minute call.
Sound production.
Copy that.
In today's episode, we'll be exploring the world of production management with someone who truly knows how to make things happen on stage and off. I'm joined by Teddy Mladenova, a talented production manager, events coordinator, working for emblematic venues such as King Place in London and the famous Royal Albert Hall. She'll be sharing with us her insights and multiple experiences. Whether you're curious about the behind-the-scenes action or just fascinating by what it takes to bring a performance to life, this is an episode you won't want to miss. So hi, Teddy. Welcome.
Hi, Louise. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm very glad you're here. It was, honestly, when I started this podcast, I was very much like, oh, we need Teddy. We really, really need Teddy. So yeah, how are you and what are you working on at the moment?
I'm very well, thank you. You're catching me in a very busy period.
Mm-hmm.
I've been, honestly, running quite a few events prior to this, and I've got quite a few after this, just in the run up to Christmas. And I'm really looking forward to some rest, actually.
Yeah. Do you have something that is not embargoed and that you're really, really looking forward to seeing and to producing?
I currently work predominantly on more corporate events.
Yeah.
So although I love the challenge of them, they're not necessarily as exciting as some of the listeners might anticipate. But I recently worked on an event in the Albert Hall. So I was event coordinating for a classical coffee morning, which featured a lovely pianist from France who was absolutely astonishing, and his Debussy was fantastic.
Of course.
So that's one thing recently that I've been very, very lucky to work on, and potentially something I'm looking forward to.
What was the name of the pianist? Just by curiosity, if you do remember.
He's called Louis Victor Bach.
Oh, I'll have a look.
Yes, please do. Absolutely amazing. And actually, I do have an event next year that is already coming through the doors, and I'm very excited because they would like it to be a bit more interactive. So I'm currently looking into some Guinness World Record setting. And
oh, wow. Okay.
I'm also looking for some maybe theatre performers on stage that can set up a scenario and they have to join in, a bit like mystery solving, but for conferencing. So that's maybe one that I'm actually really, really looking forward to.
That's an interesting mix, especially, as you say, when you think about corporate events, most of the time it's very much like, oh, it is a conference. There was going to be a lectern and someone is just going to say, good evening, gentlemen. And, that sort of thing. And people are just taking notes and that's it. But actually corporate events can go, it's a very wide range, and to hear that there will be some very immersive stuff and very fun stuff, that's really, really exciting. Is it something that you do more regularly?
I'll be honest, I hope so, because it's so exciting to be a bit more creative and actually get an input into what was gonna go on the day. But I think it's just working in my current role at King's Place has been absolutely an eye-opener in terms of conferencing, because the topics and the clients we work with is so broad that actually, in a sense, each one for me, it's interesting because they're so different and their speakers are different. And, sometimes you get some very, very amazing people coming in to speak on the stage and you're just I'm actually very lucky to be here.
Oh, I love that. So yes, just for those who listen to us and don't really know your career path, you are such a versatile freelancer at first, and then you can work from very big corporate events as well as on the production of theatre shows that could happen in the middle of a field or something like that. But you're also working as production coordinator for King's Place in London, where we are actually now. King's Place has kindly accepted to let us borrow one of their rooms for this interview, but you're also working as events coordinator for the emblematic Royal Albert Hall. Could you actually describe in just a few words maybe the nature of your role, or rather your roles, as you have so many hats?
Yeah, of course. So with my events production coordinator role, it's a lot more in the lead up to the event. I look mainly after the AV provision. So I usually speak with the clients about their requirements, stuff like how many mics they would need and whether they would like a lighting technician if they want something funky on stage. A lot of those more techie bits, I would say, which I really, really enjoy. Whilst my event coordinator role, which I know is very confusing, there's only one word difference, it's running events on the day. So somebody else advances them and then I just get given the run through for the day, what needs to happen, and I make sure that it does.
You oversee the delivery more than the
Exactly.
prep. That makes sense. No, that makes absolute sense. And like, I think, seeing how many things you do and you currently do, like, how do you manage your time? That's maybe like my first question, because gosh, you do so many things.
I would probably say actually at the moment it's pretty quiet for me. Like I'm used to a lot more. There were a few months in the beginning of the year when I was working 3 different roles. So although it all amounts to kind of the same time, it's different areas and different skill sets I use for the different jobs. So how do I manage my time? Currently it's easy, as I say, because I have my like regular full-time job, which is Monday to Friday, most of the days. And then whenever I do have the capacity to take on an additional shift at the out hall, then I do. But otherwise, it used to be a bit of a scramble of like, just let's merge 3 calendars and hope that they don't clash.
Yeah.
Which a few times they did, and a few times I had to kind of like work around it. But for me, it's fun because I think I'm a very multifaceted person. So it gives me a chance to essentially use all of my skills and not get just into one career.
Yeah. So like, for instance, for you, how's your ordinary day look like?
My current daily kind of routine, let's say, is I come to work around 9:30 most days. It kind of depends on the meetings and what we've got during the day. And then I finish at 5:30 and I go home. That's pretty much it at the moment. I don't have many early mornings or late finishes unless there's an event going on, when sometimes we do come at like 5:30, but it's the nature of the job.
Yeah.
I think everybody who works in events kind of accepts that they don't have a regular sleeping pattern, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, actually, you can see so many memes on Instagram or on any social media about the life of an event manager, where it's 2 hours sleep, but you have to feel refreshed and organized and with a fresh brain and everything the next morning. Just like during festivals where, you start at sometimes 6 a.m. I remember you gathering newspapers for a very famous festival and just having to go around all the venues of the festival, and then you have actually to stay on until the last event is over. And sometimes then that can be like 11 p.m., 12 p.m. And then you still have to go to bed and process all the day. And then when you finally manage to get some sleep, you just actually have to wake up again. So it is quite a challenge, I suppose, to like find a kind of work-life balance sometimes. Actually, how do you manage that?
Well, I was just thinking actually, because as I said a few months ago in the beginning of the year, or more like quite a few months ago now, but it was mad because, for example, one day I'll be touring with a theatre production and I was driving a van up to Southport, which is like a 3-hour drive from where the company was. And then we would do the show, so I'll opt the show, and then we will load the van and we drive back. So we're back at like 1 a.m., barely keeping there. And then in a few hours, I need to wake up and go to another job, which is a completely different thing. And actually it was that whole thing of like, actually, what am I doing today? So it was a bit overwhelming, I think, at one point. But I think it definitely helped with what I've achieved now of actually, I'm very happy with having a job which provides a bit more stability and a bit more like regularity in my day to day. And that's why now I'm like, oh yeah, half I finish, how excited, which before wasn't the case. I think I was always the girl that really wanted the late shifts, and now I'm like, no, I would like my bedtime routine, please. Thank you.
Your little herbal tea, a candle, and some cushions. We
Yes,
love
please.
that. Actually, talking about your life now, a bit of a quirky question, I suppose, is if your job had a soundtrack, what 3 songs should be on it?
Oh, that's such a hard question.
It is a bit of a hard question.
The reason it's so hard is because I soundtrack my whole life. I always think of music as being just the soundtrack of my life, and it changes a lot. And it's so, like, for me, I can listen to a song and be like, oh, that was back in 2020. And, be like, oh, yeah, I did this that time, For my current job, ooh, that's interesting. I've also changed my playlist recently, so that doesn't help much.
Okay, well, what is on your current
Your playlist?
And is the soundtrack of today's vibe?
I've been listening to lots of Normandy, Sleep Token, and Tropic Gold, which are all slightly heavier than usual.
Yeah.
So I would probably say that's my get up, get to work, sort of like on the tube, that's the soundtrack. And then I've got a lot of like Latin American, maybe like Camilo or something, like nice vibes for the afternoon when you need a little bit of pick me up.
Yeah.
I've been really into some experimental, like jazzy, liquidy stuff. I'll send you links if you wanted to like put something with this. Yeah, I'll send you a list of the songs.
Absolutely. Why have you been more exposed to jazz then? Is it thanks to the events you're working on at the Royal Albert Hall?
Some of them, yes. So I've been doing a few late night jazz concerts, which have been absolutely incredible. And I think because I look mainly after Elgar room events, it exposes you to those like artists just, they are taking off in their career, but they're not like that big yet. So they're a bit of like, ooh, this is a little gem that I've discovered.
Yeah.
So I think
definitely
emerging some of it. But I mean, here we do program a lot of jazz.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And what is your favorite part of working behind the scenes actually? And maybe more specifically at King's Place?
If we're talking specifically for here, I think the team. The team is absolutely amazing, and it's just being able to go and be like, I don't know the answer to this. Can anybody help? And like everybody's just so good at being like, okay, yeah, I think we've done this before, or maybe we haven't, and how can we do it? It's never like, no, like we cannot do this or that. So the team is definitely maybe for me the best part. And I mean, it's an emblematic venue as well in terms of like its acoustics and just the setup and how close it is in the center of town. So yes, and behind the scenes just in general, I guess I've kind of always wanted to be there. I did have a very short performing career, and I think it's not I think for me, there's lots of emotion and lots for me to give, but it also feels very, very vulnerable. So I do enjoy being behind the scenes because I can still help, artists or, even corporate clients to achieve what they want, but without having to like expose this very raw version of myself.
Yeah. Yeah, for those who don't know, but Teddy is actually a wonderful singer. I might put an excerpt if I can find something. I think actually it's quite interesting because most of the events professionals have started with a more only creative-based profession. And most of us are like former actors, former musicians, former, performers, I would say, and they discovered that actually it might not be just for us that kind of high level of pressure, but also we still absolutely love the arts and the arts domain, I would say. And then you
Absolutely.
discover that there are so many cool things happening behind the curtain, and you just want to be part of that. And I always thought that the team makes any job the best sometimes. You know, you
Absolutely.
can go through a terrible phase in your job, or, you know, so many challenges, but if you are surrounded by the right people, you can overcome anything. So well done for the shout out.
I definitely agree. Actually, like, just a thing on that is when you see it from the other side of, I recently went back on a project I've been doing for a few years, and the people that I was very close with were not there anymore. So it actually was not as fun.
Aww.
So I did really miss them.
Yeah, no, I bet. Well, I do have the same feeling, I would say. And actually something that also I feel, this is just, of course, like a very personal feeling, but I feel all people who work in events have a common sort of impatience and desire for, have no regularity, I would say. We're always curious, and, even if when you do many events, there are similar processes and similarities in how to advance them and so on. But actually, there are so many fun and quirky stories that make every single day different that it is just so rewarding, actually. It can be, sometimes you can be asked to wear a character costume for a children event, or you can be asked to page turn for a pianist, or do some random translation if you speak several languages. And do you actually have some fun stories like that? And would you like to share it with us?
I knew this was coming. There's a few definitely in my kind of like career in the past 5 or 6 years. I guess the most hilarious one was one you kind of nodded to, the fact that I did have to wear a cow bottom costume. It was a pair of trousers for the listeners. It was a pair of black trousers with white fluffy patches on them, so I could be a cow. It was a pantomime, and it was a very small production, so we kind of like, we couldn't really afford another actor for that, just a single scene. So they were like, so, the company manager that also is doing the sound, what about if they were the cow as well, maybe? So I ended up being in those trousers, and also having a cow's, like a puppet head on my hand. So I had to be kind of like this very stretchy cow that had like my bum out on one side of the set and my hand was on the other, like with the head. And it was just hilarious, because I think you need to be there to appreciate the fact that you're a running cow behind the stage whilst doing the mics without seeing the performers, and potentially, also not forgetting to kind of like do your bits. So that was very fun, but it really made me appreciate like I think it again circles to being part of a team, because it's probably one of my most hilarious shows I've worked, just for the sheer that I've been on stage once when I was in high school, and I was playing a priest.
Oh wow!
Actually,
okay. So
very funny
you went
photos from work.
Oh yeah, I want those pictures too, actually. So you came from being a priest to, now being a cow. Okay.
Being a cow, yeah, just as you do in your acting career.
Yeah. Did you put that on your CV? That's my question.
You know what? I think I should add it now.
Yeah,
now
I think so.
Under extra skills, I can be definitely a cow. But I guess other points of, for example, from this summer, one thing again, very funny moment for me and for part of the team. So I was the assistant stage manager for the yokai stage at Arctangent. Mm-hmm. And we had a crazy change from one drum deck to 2 drum decks, then to double drum deck.
Oh, God.
So the stage had a wing, but it didn't have enough space to, have multiple decks and stuff like that. So we only had the one on stage, which obviously whoever the current drummer is on, and one in the wing that can be pre-built with the next acts. But here's the question, that because of this triple change, we couldn't do the whole thing all together, for the last act. So it was essentially me and one of the other girls on the team that had to, what I would say was a Formula One cockpit sort of, scenario where we kind of slid under the decks and the guys pulled them together and we bolted them, the two of us, in like super speedy time and then walked pulled ourselves from under. So it was literally felt that adrenaline rush. I would just imagine the Formula One like teams experience when they have to change the wheels in under like I don't know how many seconds.
Yeah.
That's it. Like we were in and out in seconds, and we did the whole changeover, and then we rode the riser. But it was like, it's one of those situations where like we cannot physically, put two together unless we do this, or we decide to flip it, and that involves triple the effort. So we were like, nah.
Yeah, no, well done for being a Formula One event professional.
I've always wanted to be a car mechanic, so I just lived my dream, like actually it's all coming together.
Well, actually, that's the perfect transition to my next question, which is when did you first become interested in your current career path? Maybe after wanting to be a mechanic. So yeah, when you were a kid, maybe did you like want to organize like shows or whatever, or did you discover that a little bit later?
It's a bit hard to pinpoint exactly when, because I was always in the arts kind of since I was a kid, because I did dance for a bit and then like I did a bit of performing and this and that. But I clearly remember having like fascination with just the stage as a thing, and I've always had very like big respect towards the stage. And then I think kind of when I was performing, so that was kind of in the second part of high school years, as you know, in what we will call more like, high school education, sort of in that sort of the world. So it was kind of then when I was performing, and then I just thought, oh, how cool it would be to organize gigs. Like, how cool would that be? And then that's just how things rolled. So me and the girl I used to play with, people noticed us and they wanted to organize concerts. And I kind of like just started dipping my toes slowly into that. And then I just started paying a bit more attention when I was going to gigs and just trying to, sit behind a sound engineer or like sit in a position where I could see what was happening on stage. And then I was like, oh, how cool it would be to be a tour manager, let's say. And then funnily enough, actually, it wasn't me that necessarily decided it, is how I would like to think about it. But there was a university kind of exhibition or expo in one of the schools in Varna, Bulgaria, where I'm from. And to that exhibition, the University of Gloucestershire had come and they had decided to have a stand. So we're going around with one of my friends and I pick up this university's leaflet and I start looking through all the programs they have. And I just saw music management and I was like, that's it. And it clicked. I was like, that's what I want to do. Like, it all makes sense now, because I was like, okay, I want it to be close to like the performing bit, but I don't want to be a performer. And the thing in Bulgaria is like, you don't really see many, like, you don't really hear about, or at least back then, you didn't hear a lot about the organizers themselves. And it kind of always used to be like slightly older, men organizing gigs, and it kind of just, I never saw myself necessarily there or even represented in some form, so I didn't even think that was possible. But then I saw this leaflet and I was like, well, actually, yeah. And I had a little Google, and it was 2 years before I had to finish high school and move to a university. And it was already decided I was going to come to the UK to study. So it was more of a matter of what. So I found this course and I looked through other options. And at the time, actually, there weren't many universities that offered it as a course. So I applied to University of Gloucestershire and a couple more unis, and I got accepted. And then when University of Gloucestershire interviewed me, the course leader actually asked me about something very peculiar on my portfolio, which was traditional Bulgarian dances that I used to do in those years. And I was like, he noticed a really tiny detail, which is not really relevant to the course, apart from the fact it's art. And I was like, this is a university I'm going to go to. So that's when it kind of like got shifted. And then I guess in my current, that's a very lengthy answer to a question, but
No, I love it.
In my current kind of role or path, a bit more techie, a bit more on the production side, it was kind of in my last year of uni. So I was part of those students that unfortunately got caught in the middle of the pandemic, and we finished our degrees on our sofas at home. And it wasn't as exciting, you know, as for a lot of other students, and we didn't manage to do our placement years. So that was a big thing. So I wanted to do maybe a record label or publishing, and I couldn't do it. And then I was applying for jobs and nobody hired me, like, for a while. And I was applying for placements and nobody wanted me. Like, literally, it wasn't not even a no. It was no answer at all.
Oh.
So then the first thing that came up was events. And I was like, I mean, that is something I studied, yeah, for one part of my, you know, school curriculum, but that's fine. And then it just rolled from there. And one after the other, I kind of found myself in this position, which is what I heard at so many guest lecturers talking about, how you just fall into your career and you don't really decide on it. So in a sense, some of the decisions were, you know, there,
Yeah.
but a lot of them were just things that I was very lucky to be at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think it's a mix of like you have the right grounds and the right passions to make like such a great professional in the art industry. And, you know, there's no, you know, there are so many crossovers between all the domains. And, you know, whether you want to work for a record label or in publishing, there are some skills that will be, you know, for every domain really within the arts. So that makes complete sense. And then sometimes just a tiny thing or just meeting someone sometimes is just has such a big influence on your life really.
Absolutely.
And on your career path. So yeah, no, and actually I mean you're still very young because and especially because, you know, this season will be focused more on emerging talents, but is there an advice that you would give to your younger self? Or is there a piece of advice that you'd like to give to someone who wants to break into the events industry?
I guess. My advice would be patient, because I think when I was just starting out, which, yeah, it wasn't that long ago actually, but I was quite like, why is not happening and this and that, and I also comparing yourself. It's so hard not to compare yourself. And I think sometimes it's how it's meant to be, because I actually applied for a job that I did not get and then joined the company through a very different like entry point. And I realized actually if I were in that role that I applied for, I would have probably been crying on the floor, because it was not for me. Like, it was definitely not. I just didn't have the skill set that was needed for that job, in terms of just like the amount of pressure and how much you needed to kind of like work with the teams, but almost also like try to, you know, work not against them necessarily, but just trying to make what they're trying to explain work. And they don't really know that it doesn't.
Yeah.
So just all of that, I would not be able to do it. So I think just be patient and the right things come. But that definitely doesn't mean just sit there and relax on your sofa.
No.
Right? But yeah, enjoy. And also enjoy.
Yeah.
Really enjoy every minute, because there's always another opportunity around the corner, and there's always like more exciting jobs, you know, or what you think are more exciting jobs. But I think the most exciting job is probably the one you're doing now.
Oh, that's such a those are great words, Teddy. Thank you so much for that. But I completely, like, those words really resonate with me, because I remember when I finished uni, and, you know, I was also doing music. I was also doing so many internships, and I had the best grades. I had worked so hard to be the best. And when you know, after uni, you expect the world to be a bit easier because you worked so hard. And actually, no, it doesn't work like that, does it? And most of the time, you just wait. Like you apply to every possible things that you think you might like, and at the end of the day, yes, actually, sometimes you might not like them at all, or you just, and because you're so eager, because after studying so hard and having to sit down at a table, you just want to go hands on and be there in the industry and start your career. But yeah, I think the very start actually of the career is sometimes the hardest, because you don't have this kind of, I wouldn't call it maturity, but you don't have this kind of distance on the broader industry.
Absolutely.
And the more I will sound like an old granny now, but I'm not that old, I promise. But when you actually gain a few years of experience in the industry, you realize that, oh gosh, I mean, what does 3-4 months mean in an entire career? It doesn't, it's nothing. And sometimes actually it makes you learn other things, or it makes you prepare for other things, and sometimes even greater things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it resonates very, very much with I resonate very much with what you said. And do you think that it was maybe quite challenging to be a woman in the events industry? Especially at the start, actually.
I would say yes. I would like to think that now it's a bit easier, and I'm seeing a lot more women or people identifying as in the industry, which is absolutely amazing. And I think it's also it's not only seeing them, because I think for a while I was seeing a lot of women, but just in not very techie roles. And I've had quite a few friends that work in either as technicians or, as stage crew or crew for events. And sometimes just the fact that you looked at and they're like, you cannot do the same job as me. And I have had that before, where I've been like, oh yeah, don't lift that. And I'm like, the only reason I might not be able to lift this is if it's beyond my physical capabilities, but you do not know my physical capabilities. So let's not judge it just by the way I look. And it's been quite good sometimes, because for some reason, I'm fairly strong.
You are actually, yeah.
Moving stuff safely, we're not being heroes here. It's one of the main rules that one of the stage managers I've worked with is do not be a hero. If you cannot lift it by yourself, definitely ask for help. But sometimes you're just like, yeah, this is well within my reach. It's fine.
Yeah, I think this advice is regardless of your gender, really. And
absolutely.
Of course, you can just, decide yourself what you're capable of lifting or not. And just to add a little bit of data to this, I have found a quote, sorry. While women make up 3/4 of event professionals, so about 77%, only 22% of them occupy roles in the top level of seniority, compared to 46% of men. Yeah. This trend is also seen across pay, promotions, and career satisfaction. Have you actually personally experienced or observed this disparities? And because you do say that there is definitely progress, but do you think that what's your take on moving the industry forward in this regard?
I think there is a very interesting research actually done on this, and the reason a lot of women do not, or maybe women in their later, let's say, later 30s, 40s, 50s do not necessarily keep working in this industry is actually because they become mothers. And a lot of the time they spend time with their family. And then the one thing people do not realize is when you take a maternity leave and maybe you stay with your child for a few years because your circumstances can allow it, it means you are behind on your male counterparts. And unfortunately, when you come back, you're not at the same you're not at the same spot to apply for those jobs that are paid more.
Yeah.
And you almost have to play a catch-up game which is not really fair.
No,
because
it's not.
a lot of other people do not have to do that. So I'll try and find it for you, and actually it will be really nice to link to it, because it's very important to notice and to kind of shine a bit of light on this, because I think to move forward we just need to have the right provisions to allow for women to continue working in their jobs. And that doesn't mean, not spending time with your kids if you want to have a family. It means more of actually something I've been seeing a lot more with touring musicians. They take their kids on tour, and then they will have somebody who is like a nanny or a support person who will help look after the kids. And actually it's great. I'll be honest, maybe I'm speaking just for myself, but I think a lot of people would agree. We do not mind seeing a little toddler come into the room and be like, mummy, and it's so lovely. And it just means that the people who love their jobs can continue doing them.
Absolutely. And actually most of the time, and again, maybe it's also just a personal thought, but I prefer seeing a mother knowing that their child is next door, and might actually open the door and say, mummy, I need this or something like that, rather than having a worried mother thinking, just checking her phone in case something happens and so on. So no, I totally agree with that. There's definitely space for progress there.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about like big picture challenges, but let's shift gears a bit. And every role has its unique quirks. So maybe let's dive into some more fun things of behind the scenes. First question, I suppose, is what's your creature comfort? What makes you happy when you face a challenge or a crisis? Is it tea, just like most guests?
I would actually say currently my favorite things are chocolate covered cherries.
Ooh, that's so specific. I love that. Where do you get that, actually?
I'll send you the brand. They're absolutely amazing. And it's real cherries, which is, for me, it's like, oh yeah, I'm having my 5 a day. Just go maths. And yeah, I think it's just as well, as I said, music soundtracks my life a lot. So I do tend to have specific playlists for when it gets really, hectic. And sometimes it's literally just going out for a bit.
Yeah.
I'm like I showed you around earlier, and we went onto the terrace, and just the view is amazing. So having that so close and being able to nip out and just sit there and relax for 5 and go back. That's definitely.
Actually, yeah, the place is beautiful, and the playlist story is also, I have a playlist that is called Fuck It, Why Do I Even Care? And I use it quite often, I have to say, and it's very, comforting.
To be honest, I think also literally from there, one of my favorite lines that is actually from one of the other team members working on the catering side is, we only serve teas and coffees. And that brings me so much comfort.
Yeah.
Because actually, in the grand scheme of things, yes. And nobody has died.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you might be very annoyed and something may have gone a bit bad. But at the end of the day, it's fine.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I remember during festivals, it was also very much like the show will happen anyway. I mean, the guest is here. We've got the stage. We've got a sofa. We're fine.
Yeah.
The rest might annoy you if there's a crisis or something like that. But who will care in about, 2 days? Or maybe even like 2 years or something like that if it's a very big crisis. But who cares? Imagine you're creating a survival kit for a production coordinator or an events coordinator. What quirky or unconventional items would you include? And that, of course, includes the chocolate cherries.
Unconventional. I was just about to say like a pack of biscuits, but that's not very unconventional, is it? I can only think of very practical things like a Sharpie. and some tape, definitely, like
Yeah.
gaffer and LX.
Oh, we love a gaffer.
Yes, please.
Yeah. And because you do such a broad range of events, do you have a preference on what you like? Is there something you enjoy the most?
I would probably say no to having a particular one, just because for me, the most exciting part is all the things that happen around the events. Like the mat, like chicken running around before an event, or like how can we do this changeover between bands? Like these are the things that actually very much excite me. So I think it's just in general, one thing I've kind of like made a note for myself is just to keep working in jobs that are very, very dynamic. Because I really enjoy that we have an event almost every day. So you don't really have time to necessarily get too precious about it. Like you need to make it happen to the highest possible standard, but also you've got another one just around the corner. So you need to be able to manage that, how much you invest of yourself in an event and how much time you spend, working on it. Because I kind of look at all of my clients the same, and I want to deliver the exact same level of professional help to them. So I don't really have favorites, actually.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And just looking at your, I'm sure, very brilliant future, even if, you've just started this role at King's Place, but do you know how you would like to evolve? And is there like something that you would like to try next?
There's a few things I'll be really, really keen on doing at some point. I think I want one day to work on a very big, like, arena production.
Oh, wow,
That would be super cool, like an arena tour. Just because I love big rigs. Like, that's just so exciting. They've got so many, moving parts and, there's so many people involved. So that would be amazing. And I would also like to tour. But I want to tour in Latin America, which is very specific. So I think I need to find an artist to tour with in Latin America.
Yeah. Any artist in particular? Someone you have in mind?
There is a musician I recently met who's called Naomi in Blue. And she's amazing. She's absolutely, smashing it at the moment.
Yeah.
So I really hope she will be touring at some point, so why not?
Ooh.
Maybe.
Well, that's a little shout out. I'm actually asking all my guests the same question. Do you have an anecdote from a celebrity that, you without naming them or with naming them if they agree with it, that will stay in your mind for a long time? Do you have a green room gossip?
It's not necessarily gossip. I think it's a very wholesome story, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
I worked on it was a very small private show for a very select few, type of people. And I was looking after the artist, apart from running the event. So the artist is a fairly well-known and fairly well-versed into the industry because they've been doing that for years and years, probably a lot more. And they had a nut allergy, which I was very aware of because I had been sent a rider. So I was
that's good.
That's absolutely fine.
I saw a catastrophe just ahead of me.
So I had briefed the people working for the restaurant, and I've been in touch with the manager and everything. And the artist arrives, and I'm being very so we can do this and we can do that and da-da-da. And at the same time, I'm just realizing that because I had focused so much on the nut allergy, I had kind of not very much paid attention to the fact that they just don't like fish and don't eat, I think, pork, and they don't eat this and that. So when I went through the menu, there was not much on there that they could eat. So I obviously went absolutely pale and horrified, and I was I'm so sorry. Let me see what we can do for you. And they just gave me the loveliest smile and chuckle, and they pulled out a Subway out of their backpack. And that was it. And they were just I've got it. It's all good. It's all fine. Don't worry, love. And I was like,
Oh,
how can you be so wholesome? Like, it was absolutely lovely. So that's one I think would stay with me. First, because you need to read the writer multiple times, please. Yes. But also just because, you know, a lot of the time when you hear those stories, they tend to be because somebody has been very rude or very annoying. And actually, I would like to just be one of those very positive ones.
yeah, no, I love that. And, you know, most of the time, the things you want to remember are the positive energies and the positive attitude that helped you in terms of like in a moment of oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, no, that makes total sense. Any like particular artist that you really enjoy working with?
Working with? Oh.
Well, or taking care of, you know.
Yeah, I was very lucky to work with Jordan Rakai a few years ago.
Wow.
As part of a festival, and that was absolutely amazing. Who have I recently worked with? I've worked with Gregory Porter, who also was very lovely.
Yeah.
And I worked actually with a lovely girl called Kezer Jill, and she's like an Americana sort of singer-songwriter, which was performing in the Albert Hall, and she was probably one of the loveliest people I've ever met.
Oh.
So yeah, she was such a delight to work with.
I love that. And maybe just a very final question. If you could produce or organize any event in the world, what would it be and why? Or would that be the touring part?
Oh, I've got so many ideas about cool events. So I'm currently very into immersive sounds. So I would really want to create a big sort of, before they've done a bit in print works and sort of like, you know, industrial with lots of speakers, maybe an orchestra, who knows, and cool lighting and stuff like that. But I think something like this will be very, very exciting to work on, especially from production point of view.
Absolutely.
And why? Just because it's exciting. Like, why not? You can push boundaries. And I think that's what I love in my job as well, that I've been very fortunate to work on some projects. Like, we put a massive, like, multi-faceted speaker in the Roman baths, in the Great Bath, and had like live musicians play, and that bounced off the walls. And it was so like, I did the surveying part, like created the survey, and I was running the event. So on the way out, after I got all those survey forms, you could see, so the way we did the feedback was what emotions did it evoke, but we didn't limit it. We were like, tick as many as you want. And then when I was pulling the data from those, was like some people were all, like, happy but also frustrated. Like, so you had like a mixture of emotions, and that's what I like about it. Like, let's do something like that you go in and you're a bit like, what is happening here? And I really enjoy it.
Yeah, discovering new things and, you know, getting people out of their comfort zone, but creating a new one, maybe potentially.
Exactly. You never know. People might like it.
Yeah, and they might come back.
Exactly.
And love it again. Well, Teddy, it's been fantastic to having you today. A huge thank you also to King's Place, who, you know, graciously opened their doors for us today. It's truly a beautiful venue and such a creative powerhouse. So it's a real privilege to be here. And yeah, thank you so much, Teddy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been absolutely lovely. It's great to see you.
Well, no, it's great to see you too. And well, thank you for tuning in. Stick around for our next episode, where we keep digging into the untold stories and unsung heroes behind the magic.